We all set? Good to go? I'm making this announcement in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, being Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, laws of the state of New Jersey. The Planning Board Secretary has prepared a schedule of the meeting of the Planning Board of the Borough of Kenilworth for the year 2018 and has posted a true copy of this schedule on the bulletin board located at the front entrance Borough Hall and has mailed true copies of this schedule to the local source and the Star Ledger and is maintaining a copy of this schedule in Borough Hall. Accordingly, the notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act have been satisfied in regards to this meeting. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Shoki?
Here.
Mr. Paserno?
Here.
Mr. David?
Here.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Here.
Mr. Pantina?
Here.
Mr. Pinto?
Here.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Here.
Mr. Colello?
Here.
Mr. Mazzio?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
And Mr. Parry is excused.
Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the March 8th minutes?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. David, second by Mr. Grimaldi. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any communications? Kevin? No, seeing no communications, we're going to move to resolutions. Resolution, application 367, 5-19, site plan variance. Wondrelli? 1 second, is that the pronunciation? Wondrelli? 618 North Michigan Avenue, Block 2, Lot 12. Is the attorney here?
Yes.
Oh, I see you sitting there.
Coincidentally.
Coincidentally.
Yes. We have no comments. We've looked at, reviewed the resolution, etc.
Okay, Okay. Any comments about this resolution at all before we go ahead?
Can I ask the board one question?
Sure.
This resolution is, I believe, different than what you're used to. Is it okay for you? This is what I normally use. I find it to work. If it's something that you find acceptable, great. If you have a major problem with it, I can tweak it, but I find that this works.
This was your first resolution with this board at this point?
Yes.
So this is a new format, new look-see. Has anybody got any problem with it? I'm sure you all read it prior to us getting here, right?
Yeah.
It was good by me. As long as it's good by you, you're the one who signed this.
I like that. I didn't know he was going to say that. Put me under the gun. It's too late now. Well, seeing no communication between the board and the attorney, can we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. David, second by Mr. Shelkey. Roll call, please.
Mr. Shoki?
Yes.
Mr. Paserno?
Yes.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Pantina?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Yes.
Mr. Colello?
Yes.
And Mr. Mazzio?
I didn't hear that case, so I don't know if
Oh,
I
I'm
should have
sorry.
said yes to that. I didn't hear
Okay.
you.
No, if you
Only
weren't
those
here,
people
who are-
if you weren't here, you just call the ones that were
I'm
here.
sorry, I made the wrong one.
In
Should we do that
fact,
again?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Shoki?
Yes.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Yes.
Mr. Colello?
Yes.
And Mr. Mazzio?
Yes.
Okay. Moving forward, we have some new business. Application 366-518, Precision Escalator Products, 2 Mark Road, Block 3, Lot 6. Anyone here to be heard for that?
Yes.
Now it's your turn.
Play it again.
Can you state your
We're all
name?
here for one reason.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, I think, oh, she was, this one.
no.
Okay, your name and address for the record?
Yes. Meredith Marcus from Hale & Hale on behalf of the applicant, Precision Escalator Products, Inc. We're here for an application for Precision Escalator Products. We're requesting site plan variance approval to construct a one-story warehouse at 2 Mark Road. We're requesting relief from 3-dimensional variances, lot depth, which is a pre-existing condition, front yard setback, and building coverage, all which will be discussed by our engineer and planner. We're also requesting approval for a parking variance, which I'm sure will be discussed in some detail tonight, and we have some discussion on that as well from our engineer and planner. We're providing 15 spaces where 23 are required. Our engineer, Eric Blue, will discuss parking, the company operations, and all the options we looked at to provide and meet the parking variance. We will have 3 witnesses tonight. We have David Collins as our architect. We have Eric Blue as our engineer, and we have Greg Marukian from Precision Escalator. So I will start with David.
Just for the record, I've reviewed notice and publication, they appear to be in order.
Counselor, would you swear us in?
Gentlemen, with regard to this application, do you swear that the testimony and comments that you may make shall be the truth?
I do.
Okay, and for the record, just state your name and
Kevin O'Brien.
Christian Cueto.
planner and engineer respectively.
And we are also in receipt of review letters from Mr. O'Brien, the latest one dated April 9th, 2018, and from Harbor Consultants dated April 4th, 2018. Okay? Comments? Swear in?
Just raise your right hand, please. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Just state your name and spell your last name, please.
David Collins, Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
And can you provide the board with your education, expertise, and any licenses you hold?
Certainly. I have a Bachelor of Architecture from Roger Williams University. I'm licensed to practice architecture in New Jersey and New York. I have an MPARC certificate holder. I've been in front of many boards throughout the state, planning boards, historic commissions, zoning boards, all different places.
Have you ever appeared before this board?
I have not.
Okay, we'll accept that.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Collins, is what you're going to be referring to the same plans that we have?
It is.
Okay, it hasn't been changed. You don't need to mark it if it's the same thing we have.
Okay, great.
When you reach something that we do not have, then we'll start marking.
Great. This is my only exhibit for tonight, so
Okay.
these are all here notes. So this is drawing A101. Again, it's part of the package that you received. This drawing shows conceptual floor plan and exterior elevations for the proposed project. The top of this drawing is where Mark Road is, up here. So what we're proposing generally is a warehouse area and area for assembly and fabrication in the same main area. To the left side of the drawing, we're showing a depressed loading dock so that trucks can back inside the building. There's a 4-foot difference here in grade so that material can be unloaded off the truck within the building directly onto that grade. And we're also showing an at-grade drive-in door on this side of the left side of the building as well, so that forklifts can come out and in if they need to come in and out of the building for any reason. And on the right side of this plan, we're showing dotted in a concept of what an office could be in this building. And really what's important about this is we're showing basically a percentage of the building as being able to be used as office. So we have a main entrance and an open office area, some private offices in the conference room with some restrooms. The idea for now is this building is just going to be used as a warehouse and fabrication area. This office area will not be constructed at first, but could be constructed later. Drawing number 3 is our north exterior elevation. This is the elevation that faces to Mark Road. So on the left, we have the main entrance with the glass facade. We have side lights and transom lights over it. We have a sign directly over the entrance, and we have a series of clerestory windows up high on the facade to bring light more deeply into the warehouse space. And on the right side, you can see there's a change in grade as you go down Mark Road. This is the drive-in door. We made a wide drive-in door for the trucks, so the trucks can drive in to the building, into this loading dock area here. Again, the clerestory windows continue across the top. The materials for the building, we're proposing a decorative split-face concrete block for the bottom section of the building, and the top portion is a metal panel. I have samples of both of those. I'll pass these around. Obviously, you can tell
Thank you,
one's
sir.
a block and one's the panel.
I want to mark those, are there two samples?
Yes, sir. Samples.
I'm going to mark the samples, both samples, A1, if you can put it on there.
I have a Sharpie. When I'm done speaking, I'll put them on. Is that right?
Perfect.
Is that
yeah.
better? Okay.
Yeah.
So both of
A1 is will consist of both of those.
That's a good one.
And what did you indicate was on top? The elevations on top, yeah.
Yeah, across the top, these windows?
Yeah.
These are clerestory windows, it's just the term for the high glass windows.
But the material, you mentioned.
The facade material on the top portion of the building is metal panel.
Metal panel.
So
Thank you.
that sample that you see, the gray metal panel that you see there, it will be a corrugated panel, but that's generally the color and the
Thank you.
finish. You also have a series of leaders and a gutter across the top. This is a shallow pitched roof, it's going to be a standing seam metal roof. So the roof really won't be visible from the street or line of sight because the building height, you really won't be able to see that roof, but what you will be able to see is the gutter across the top and all the leaders, the series of leaders that we brought down in between each of these sets of windows. On the east facade, we have a series of windows for that office areas to bring natural light into that side of the building. So all those windows in plan are shown here. On the west side of the building, the facade is more blank. It's decorative block on the bottom, metal panel on the top, and this is the drive-out door. So this is the facade that will face the parking lot and be sandwiched in between our building and the adjacent building. The south or rear elevation, which is the opposite side of Mark Road, again, we have the clerestory windows across the top to bring natural light in, decorative block on the bottom, metal panel on the top, and again, the leaders and gutters are shown there. Generally, we have a finish scheduled here as well. It matches up with what you guys are seeing. It's the decorative masonry metal panels, the downspout colors. You can see that we've coordinated all the colors. Okay. Just talking about how to get in and out of this building quickly. The main entrance here, double glass doors. We have egress doors towards the back. We have actually a secondary employee entrance to the back side. The parking lot is here, which you'll see on the site plan shortly. And we also have a door that leads out towards Mark Road. This will allow people to come from the truck either internally inside the building up a set of stairs or from the outside come out to meet someone backing into this loading dock area.
Yes. I think one of them,
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because the engineer's going to be speaking to a lot of these issues. There's a slight discrepancy between the architectural drawings and the civil engineering drawings, which we'll correct. My drawings show the warehouse space at 13,077 square feet, which actually also includes the loading dock area, which is technically not storage space, but it's all included in that area. And we show 2,040 square feet. The way the engineer's drawings look, it makes it appear that we're off by quite a bit, but there's actually just a minor discrepancy. It's just in the way it was presented on the engineer's drawings. It appears that what was only warehouse really was the entire building. So I'll let the engineer talk about the minor discrepancy, but these are the correct numbers, and these are the numbers that we're proposing tonight and that we're going to follow. There'll be 13,077 of warehouse, 2,040 of future office space.
Did you just say 13,077?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next item that was brought up was the facade, and I think the first line is perfect. It says, not surprisingly, the industrial building and industrial zone looks industrial, and it is an industrial building, and I believe that the best approach is to be honest about things, and I think that this building will fit in very nicely on Mark Road. It's obviously quite an improvement from the existing conditions that are there. We tried to keep this building clean and simple and somewhat economical, although, we are, of course, complying with all the codes. We have a lot of insulation going into this building. We're doing a lot of things to make this building function very well. The decorative block is a very traditional use of materials, a hard material. It's good, it protects the building at the base. So the building shouldn't be beat up or shouldn't see premature wear on the building because we have this hard surface at the grade. And unlike a lot of warehouses built today, we have these series of windows that I think help break up the facade and also provide natural light for people who are working in the building.
Mr. Collins, I just want to ask you one question. I know you're not finished, and I don't like to interrupt, but did I hear you say you have 2,040 square foot of proposed office space, or it could be office space?
Future office space, you're correct, yeah. When you add those two numbers, that's the gross size of the building. So yes, we're not proposing to build that office space now.
But it could be in the future.
Correct, and the area that we're dedicating towards that use, which has obviously other implications that the engineer will talk about, is that 2,040 square feet.
Okay.
So we use that number so that we can do parking calculations and things like that. I think most of this, rest of this report, the engineer will speak to. Anything that I missed?
No, I think that's it.
I'm assuming the report you're referring to is Mr. O'Brien's
Yes, I'm sorry.
of April 9th?
That's April 9th.
Okay.
No, that's all I have too. So I offer Mr. Collins to the board.
Anyone from the board wishing to ask Mr. Collins anything at this point, or would you rather wait to hear all the testimony and come back to them? Well, so it's entirely up to you, Mr. Grimaldi?
I'd like to just ask a couple questions. HVAC, utilities, everything all internal, and even you have a low-pitched roof, so you're not having any units on the roof?
That's correct. We're not proposing any units on the roof. With this warehouse space, we'll be using gas-fired mini heaters that will be hung from the ceiling inside the building.
And if anything, over the proposed office area, you'll have a lower ceiling, so you have space to hang your utilities and everything else. You have a bump in the building that's breaking up, and not that I, believe me, I like breaking up buildings, but you have a bump in the building at your drive. Is that internal depth a specific, is there a specific need for that depth of the loading dock? And is that why we have this extension off the front of the building?
That's exactly why we brought the building as forward as we could. We tried to respect the rear setback line, and we brought this small piece forward so that we could fit more truck types within the building. We still have an issue that the engineer will discuss a little bit with you, but we have an apron that's out in front of this, and the larger trucks, when they come in, the nose will be just outside, within that apron space, but just outside that garage door. We would have loved to have had more feet, but we were trying to respect the rear setback.
And what size truck is that you're getting to fit that?
The one I'm talking about is the 54-foot, the big trucks.
Okay, and so that is why that extension's there, because
Right.
otherwise you either cut yourself off. Okay.
Right, and well, maybe I should introduce another exhibit, just to kind of... Okay, so the engineer will discuss
That's fine.
why this bump is here on this building and why the building sits where it does on the site.
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. David?
Yeah, just from an aesthetic point of view, I mean, I know we're in an industrial zone, but as I look at that, I mean, it just looks like a series of garage doors. Just one garage door after another with the window breakup. Was any other, look considered besides that?
No, we didn't consider any other looks. I mean, this is a fairly standard for industrial buildings, pre-engineered steel buildings. This is a pretty standard construction type. And we looked at it, like I said, from a lot of aspects in terms of durability and things like that. But we did not. Also, one of the other problems we have is we have a fairly narrow strip across the front. We're trying to introduce some landscaping and things like that, which the engineer will talk about. So if we had jogged this building in and out, would have taken away from some of that space and some of the things that we did on the site side.
I would agree with Mr. David, because we had a building, all right, go up not too long ago.
It's still being construction.
Yes. And again, we respect the economic need and requirement of building this, and we thank you for building a new building in our town. But at least, some type of emphasis at the entrance or the loading dock, something. If it could be considered, it'd be great, but again, we're glad it's a new building, we're glad there's something going on there, but again, if there, architecturally, if there can be some type of demarcation, importance, even a bigger spot for a bigger sign, maybe.
Yeah, bigger sign. If there's any suggestions that the board has, I mean, and who knows, I sit on my board and I don't have any architecture, ideas, so I always leave that to the architects, so I don't want to blow off your suggestions, but if there's anything you have to suggest, or if you want us to, give you some other options.
Why don't we take Mr. Grimaldi's comments under consideration, and once we hear the rest of what's going on, we could back into that and see if there's something that we could do with a design that's feasible in an industrial area that doesn't take away from your footprint, but also can enhance the curb appeal of the project.
While the engineer...
We'll give you some time to think about it.
What's that?
While the engineer presents his portion, I'll discuss with my client.
Sure. Mr.
Just wanted to throw something out to the board, Chairman. I had put out in my report, in addition to breaking up that north facade, something to be done with the west that faces the parking lot. The board may wish to think about that. Right now, it's a
Blank wall.
pretty vast blank wall with nothing breaking it up vertically or horizontally. I made a couple of suggestions, but the board may want to think about that and offer suggestions to the applicant if they think it's necessary.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Collins? Yes.
All the new trains will be connected and integrated with the detention system, right?
Actually, that's the engineer.
And was there anything being done about these man doors? They're just sort of isolated. Any demarcation, any lighting?
Obviously, there'll be emergency lighting for those doors.
Inside or outside? Okay, because that's not shown.
We can definitely add that.
So, I'm sorry, there was some ruffling going on, and I just missed that conversation.
I just asked what the plan was for these man doors. There's no delineation, like you see the front door, there's glass panels to denote an entry. These are these exit doors only? You mentioned one in the front was to help with the trucks.
This door
That's
is
the office door,
entrance,
right?
and this door will be the employee entrance and exit. It will
Okay.
serve as a means of egress. This will be basically only used as a means of egress. And this will be used as a means of egress, but it also is close to this door, so it has a function here too.
Now, the back is all grass, so they're going to exit out onto grass?
There's actually a concrete pad out here that comes to there. There's a concrete pad here.
Okay, and then you're on grass?
Yes,
And then you're going to add lights?
yes.
Okay.
So is what you're saying, the lights are not part of the plan?
No, that's okay, we can add them later.
I know we could add them later.
They're not on the plan right now.
Okay. So that would more or less be a condition of the plan,
Yes, sir.
and that's what we're trying to get away from.
Yes, sir.
One more question. For the front entrance where most of the customers will be coming in, the doors open out, that's onto where the ADA access is going to be. Someone is accessing the building on now, that someone who looks
Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, first of all, and we got to give some, sorry.
My apologies.
That's okay.
My question was, the front entrance of the building is for ADA access, and the doors swing out, and there is a narrow a typical ADA width of about 4 feet there. So someone in the wheelchair or operating some sort of scooter trying to get in, if the doors come out, can't exactly go in.
I can switch those doors to swing in and still meet the egress code.
Okay. So, thank you for that. And just as a statement, just for the record, I would like to be clear that those kind of things that we just talked about, where we can make an adjustment for the swing to go in and out, the door is already on the plan, so I really don't take issue with the condition to make that happen. What I do have a problem with is that we're continuing to see plans that don't have things that should be on it, like lighting. And so we don't want to come back and look at that. We as a board have spent many hours talking about the simple things that should be implemented on the plan, and one of which is lighting, the drains, the aesthetics. So I'm sure the board is in agreement with me there. So please, as the professionals, pick up on that before it gets here if we can. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else wish to speak to Mr. Collins? All right, seeing none, I'm thinking that maybe,
Secretary, if you don't mind. Okay. Thank you.
would you like to present your next?
Yes, please. I'd like to present Mr. Eric Ballouz.
Raise your right hand, please. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
State your name, spell your last name, please.
Eric Ballou, B-A-L-L-O-U.
Is it E-R-I-C?
E-R-I-C, correct.
Thank you.
This is probably the most stressful part of my whole presentation right now, though. My education, I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Massachusetts. So based upon the Yankee draw last night, that was... I don't think the Massachusetts was good timing, but that's where my degree came from. Anyway, so I've been doing this for about 27 years. I haven't had the pleasure to testify in front of this board, but I have done numerous municipalities, Newark, Harrison, Jersey City, Piscataway, Long Branch, and my specialty through my career has been redevelopment projects. So this was a perfect fit for me to be part of this project.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to take a step back a little bit, and I'm going to introduce a new exhibit that you don't have in front of you right now.
A2, please.
Or is it A?
A1 is where the exterior.
So the exhibit I have is labeled existing conditions. That is true if it was 2017 prior to demolition. So this is the exhibit showing the conditions that existed on that property before the demolition occurred. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is to get good context of how we're actually revitalizing this project and making a lot of improvements that was there before. So the yellow boundary, we have Mark Road across the street, and the yellow outline shows the existing property. It's about 0.6 acres or so. What was there before was about a 17,000 square foot building. And it had almost all violations. It exceeded building coverage. It exceeded front, rear, and side setbacks. So it violated all the setbacks. It violated impervious coverage, violated open space. So basically it was pretty much a completely non-conforming building, as well as it wasn't any parking requirements as well. So that I wanted to give context to understand what we're actually, the project we're looking at. Also, too, the adjacent building to the west, you can see it was basically built within 2 or 3 feet of that existing building, basically right up against it. And then another exhibit to sort of give context. So this will be
A3.
A3. So this is sort of an existing photo of the building prior to demolition. You can see it, the poor materials, the windows were broken, soil. The site was a real complete mess, and something definitely had to be done. So just want to give a context of really what we started out with and what we're going to turn it into.
Oh, yeah.
Is this the best place to set up?
Yes.
Okay.
We were gonna put that smart TV up top, but we just didn't.
Okay. All right. Then next time I'm gonna come back, we're gonna have to. So now I have a color rendering of the proposed development.
Say
So this
A4,
is
please.
A4. A lot of exhibits. So the reason we're here tonight is that the existing business, Precision Escalator, is being successful and they're looking to expand their operations. And basically what they are is a sort of an auto parts store for escalators. So what they have is providing all the parts for escalators, including some manufacturing of them, and also rehabilitating some of the original parts on escalators. And if you go through their website, they have like over 1,000 different components associated with escalators. So when you look at the magnitude, and we all ride escalators all the time, there's a lot of parts in them. So part of this project is sort of to expand the facility, hire more people, and continue to grow within Kenilworth. That's why we're here tonight to present this. To accommodate that is the building. And then we talked through the details before on the discrepancies. Architect tells me they're always right. I believe them. So we're going to go with the architectural square footage that we're on here. And it's still very, very close to what's on the documents. Orientation-wise, sort of how we set this project up was really dictated based upon the cross street of Sydney Road. You know, the narrowness of Mark Road sort of makes it difficult for the larger tractor trailers to actually get in there. So we really had to strategically locate this building to allow Sydney Road to help us make those turning movements for the very large trucks that we see on the roads today. And I'm right now going to introduce more exhibits. It's going to tell the whole story. A5.
And we do not have this, or do we?
You do not.
A5.
A5. So what this is a turning movement plan for what we call W40 vehicles. So it's a trailer of about 33 feet. So this is one of the more smaller tractor trailer sizes that you'll see. So this one here shows the truck can come down, go towards the west, turn out and back in perfectly into that loading area, and then pull out and easily leave. And with the smaller size tractor trailers, you can see with that provided loading area, they're all fully enclosed. And there's even, there's a large range, there's different ranges. Even though the next size up could also fit in here. So this shows how maybe a lot of the typical trailer trucks in this area will operate. They'll come up, back in, and that's how they'll access the loading area. But we also took a look at another one which would require A6. A6.
You need a new Sharpie.
Is turning movement plans for a WB67. So these are the biggest ones. So that shows that even the largest tractor trailers can still use that same K-turn type of movement to get into that garage, but the trailer, the cab does stick out slightly beyond the building, but not within the public right-of-way. So it's within that curb line. So it does fit. So we're trying to capture as much as that truck as possible. So even as much so where the doors are of the tractor trailer, they can get and be out of the weather and the elements. So that's sort of what dictated that loading dock size, was the ability to accommodate these large tractor trailers that, I don't know how they get down these local streets, but they do it. And this facility will be able to accommodate that. So I wanted to go through that in detail. Again, to interrupt me as I go, as that's needed.
Mr. Billy, you may want to pass some of the exhibits over to,
Can you show us how that truck exits? Is that number?
I do. So on the larger trailer trucks, they actually pull up and then do a K-turn down and then leave. So they can't just move. These tractor trailers are so large, they can't just immediately take the right and leave. They're going to have to pull up, back up, and then go to the end. The good part about this site, where it's located within the industrial district, we're really basically on a large cul-de-sac. So the area to the left, to the west, is really a dead-end industrial area. So there's not a lot of heavy cross traffic through here. If you're going to this area, you're sort of associated with an industrial use. So these kinds of movements that would occur maybe 4 to 5 times a day in total. I'm not sure how many of those would be the larger trucks, this will be the kind of movement. So it's less than 1 hour typically for this type of facility. Yeah, I'll go back to the site layout. A4? Yeah, A4. Yeah. So now I'm going to go back and talk about A4. So once we placed the building, the next aspect was to try to figure out how to accommodate parking for the facility. So what we did, since we pulled the building almost 70 feet back away from that existing building where it was very tight, we actually placed a standard parking lot, which counts as a 24-foot aisle, 9 by 18 stalls, ADA compliant, and the parking lot also allows at-grade access into the warehouse. So the dock is 4 foot low, but beyond that, there's actually the same finished floor elevation. So you could run it like a forklift or another piece of equipment, you could run it through at grade. Some other aspects of the plan, we had the development review committee meetings, and that resulted in changes. It did. So we actually ended up adding a bike rack to this project, as well as a picnic table along the front for the employees as well. So those were a couple of the changes that came through that review process. One thing that's really good, you can see that, before our building was up against all the property lines, we actually meet almost all the setbacks except for the front setback, where we have only about 25% of the building is in non-compliance. So a majority of the building respects that 10 feet. But we have the area here of the loading dock area where it's 0 to try to enclose as much as the vehicle. And also too, we have an irregular lot at the corner here where the Mark Road takes a bend. So right there, that one corner is about 4 feet or so in that area. So that's one of the front setback reliefs that we were looking for this evening. To offset some of the setbacks, we are proposing landscape. So we do have a few trees and a few shrubs around this. Another thing that came out of the development review committee meeting, we changed some species because of deer resistance. So I think I underestimated that when I first selected the species. We went back, we went to the Rutgers document, and they actually list species from like A to D. Like D, they're severely damaged, A, rarely damaged. So we're mostly picked A to B type of species, and we'll also add a note to the plan as requested by the planner about deer resistance in case a plant substitution may occur. If some nursery doesn't have something available, we may need to choose something. We want to make sure they're deer tolerant when we do that. Lighting. So we have this proposed parking lot, so we need to provide lighting for it. So what we're proposing is basically one wall-mounted light that's actually attached to the warehouse that's up about 30 feet. And what that does is that basically gives us about a ½ foot candle of coverage for the entire paved surface. Within the review letter, though, there was some concerns that maybe, even though it's a ½ foot at the parking stalls, there still might be some light actually emitting onto the adjacent property. So we can agree maybe to try to tweak maybe even the wattage, or even sometimes just tweaking the elevation of these lights to try to actually minimize the impact to offset, which is still very minimal even with the present design. Stormwater management. So in this area, since we went from a site that was almost fully covered, we actually reduced our impervious area. So just by doing a good land plan, we've actually met our stormwater requirements. But we did talk through the DRC meeting that we should really strive to do even more than that. So what we're actually proposing is an underground detention system within that parking lot that will take a lot of this roof water, even slow it down even further than the pre-development existing out there, and then discharge it into the Mark Road storm sewer system. There was a comment in regards to picking up the roof drains. The building is quite long, so right now we're predicting on picking up half of that roof, and then the other half will be directly connected to inlets because of the length of run that we have. But we could take a look at maybe running some flatter pipe through here and potentially get it all connected to the detention basin. So we'll definitely take that into consideration.
Excuse me, Mr. Volo, did you say you're going to pick up 50% of the roof into the retainage system?
That's correct, 50% of the roof. The reason why, the limitation to try to get the other half, since it's almost 180 foot of building, it's really the grade change. The Mark Road storm sewer system is relatively shallow, so it's hard to run the slope from one end to the other.
How big is your basin? How big is the retainage basin?
I think I had to take a look. I think it's basically I'd say 3/4 of the parking lot has underground storage pipes. There is the historical soils and everything, so we made a detention system, so it'd be watertight pipe.
You had mentioned before you were going to revise the plan to allow more stormwater to go into the basin?
Correct. Right now, we have it designed, basically, when you look at the stormwater report, basically we have a drainage area that goes about half the building and shows that going through a pipe into that basin. So we will take a look at it to see if maybe we can extend some pipes along to pick up the roof leaders to see if we can get it all connected. If not, it will still have quite a reduction over the existing conditions that are out there. All right, I think we're gonna save the best for last here, so parking. Let's talk about parking. So, we have about 13,077 square feet of warehouse, is what's on the documents right now. And then we have 2,040 square feet of office area. So the office area that's through here, though, there's also talk about, really, that may not be built initially, but that area, square footage could be used for actually light assembly, light manufacturing. The reason why we went with the office square footage versus light manufacturing assembly is that office actually has the most constrained parking requirement, most demanding parking requirement. So your office space, warehouse is 1 per 1,000, all right, great. So we have like 13,000 square feet, you need 13 spaces. You have 2,000 square feet of office space, you need 1 space per 200 square feet. So that turns into another 10 spaces for a demand of 23 spaces for the site. If we actually label this as like assembly light manufacturing area, you actually only need 1 space per 400 square feet. So it's really, it's almost double, but you need double for office than you would for light manufacturing assembly. So we figured it would be best to maybe show like the worst or highest demand parking and then talk about it from that standpoint was our mindset. But we're concerned that, all right, I have to go one more exhibit. Then I'm done. But we're concerned about the board's concerned about having less parking. So we actually went back prior to this hearing and have another plan that we haven't presented to your professionals or yourselves. But we thought it would be good for us to present this as a potential solution to gain more parking on this site.
We're at A7.
All right. So this is a colored rendering entitled Alternate Site Layout. You know, you drive up and down Mark Road and there's like, everyone parks, basically uses Mark Road as a drive aisle. And everyone parks perpendicularly along that, which is not a safe move, especially when you have trailer trucks coming down through there all the time. So what we looked at is actually indenting the curbing to actually provide parallel parking. So it would provide us with approximately 4 spaces, at the same time still giving us an area of actual plantings between the building and the roadway as well. So we could increase from 15 to 19, which is very close, with this kind of solution. Also built in conservatively as well with our parking counts is that we're actually providing parking for the loading area. So that also added to conservatism to our site. So we wanted to present to the board an option to get closer into compliance and judge your thoughts on that.
Mr. Bello, could you hold those 2 exhibits side by side?
Yes, I can.
Mr. Baloo, is somebody going to give testimony concerning the number of employees, the shifts, which would speak to the necessity for parking?
You know, I have that information I can provide. Should I provide that now?
That might help
Yes.
establish your needs.
Yeah, let's do that. So,
Can I just see that side by side?
oh yeah, sorry. So basically the focus is right here.
Right.
So what happened here, since we had a handicap ramp to provide access, we took that handicap ramp, put it on the eastern side of the building. So that took away the space being utilized. And then, since we had more space in this area, that's how we were able to accommodate the parking. So that's really the focus between the two.
So there'd be much less landscape.
I don't say much less. See, we have the 2 trees here, we have 3 trees here, we have 2 trees there, but Honestly, we put this together, we could definitely get the same number of shrubs, honestly, because I can actually do another 2 trees in this area could accommodate, so we could accommodate very similar landscaping.
So it doesn't affect the building shape, size, or the turning movements of that W67?
That's correct. So we actually didn't shift the building, we only adjusted the curb line. That's correct.
Well, you didn't adjust the curb line, you just adjusted the uses within the right-of-way. Right? You're not moving the, you're not moving the curb line, you're just parking within.
Yeah, we're moving it
Within the
over.
curb line. You're kind of like,
We're doing protected parking is really what this will result in, is protected.
yeah.
Mr. David?
Yeah, that was going to be, kind of my question in terms of, I look at it as in the curb, and that's going to appear as it's part of the right-of-way.
Yeah.
And your neighbors can say, this is public parking, I can park here. How are you going to restrict that only your employees can park there?
Since we do have a portion of the parking on our property, we've had a request that maybe we could put some kind of signage on there that would be restricted to this facility.
If I may, I would like to take a look at, before looking at the alternate, let's take a look at the site layout, which seems to be much more appealing on the curb appeal side, and then talk about the relief for your parking, because this has been what this board has been looking for, more of the greenery, more of buffing the building, looking at that, and maybe we could deal with the parking later. I understand your concept, but I have to agree that that's going to become an issue with other people in town.
Understood, correct.
And your parking,
And a police
your
enforcement.
practical parking demand may not require a lot of on-site parking. We don't know yet.
Right, so what's anticipated here is basically an operation Monday through Friday, 6 in the morning to 8 p.m. would be the typical operations. Approximately 20 employees, not necessarily working all at the same time. Since it's 6 to 8, there could be a couple different overlaps of shifts, as some part-time workers and things of that nature. So right now, the vision is approximately 20 employees. But like anyone that has a growing business, there's always a concern that potentially in the future, as the business gets more successful, there may be a need to add more. It's the type of thing that if this was being considered, it could be like a green banking situation where we actually, construct it out like this to start with, or something similar to this, probably drive the walkway back, build the curb. But in the future, we would set it up so you could remove this curb, connect it up, and then have those spaces. So we would be interested in a green banking option as well.
How many maximum employees we have at any one time?
I think we might want to wait for the specifics until Mr. Murphy comes on.
Can I ask a quick one while he's on this something?
Yeah, sure.
Is there parking allowed on Mark Road right now?
In my mind, there's not enough width in there without changing the curb, I would say it should be not allowed right now when I look at the width.
Are you saying, is it legal to park on Mark Road now?
Yes.
From my understanding is no.
Okay.
Do we know that for a fact here?
I don't know it for a fact, but I don't see any parking there because it's a narrow road, and what would happen is cause congestion on both sides. I don't see any parking on Mark Road. I'm down there quite a bit.
I'm looking for restrictive signs on the roadway, and I'm not finding any.
I didn't see any either.
Yeah, I didn't see any either.
Because my point was, yeah, I'm with you, you don't see any, because the other industries have the old angle parking that is crossing everything,
Yeah.
we're trying to eliminate that fraction, but, if it's allowed, the alternate is just shifting the allowable onto his private property and making it a little restrictive, but we could further that discussion if it needs to be.
So I guess now would probably be a good time for me to go through all of the zoning compliance issues where we still, talk about all the relief and everything. So parking is one of the reliefs that we need.
So can I just make a recommendation before you get going? Because of the camera set up and our other board members there, maybe they could take a look at what's going on, push that over to one side, and I know it's a little difficult here, especially for the camera crew in the back. And plus, it's in
Should I
my
push
direct
this one?
line.
Should I push?
So you want to stick with the alternate site, or what do you want to stick with, Mr. Baloo?
I'm going to refer to my client.
What are we going to talk about right now? The alternate or the original site plan layout?
I mean, Mr. Marukian will...
We are, but he's going to reference a plan, so I want to see which one I'm talking to.
I mean, I think this is the more flexible site plan, so
Okay.
this would be the more preferable, but I know we just introduced it to you, so I don't want to throw it at you and say, what do you think? But this would be the one if you wanted an answer.
Okay. So, go ahead, Nick, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was gonna wait until he was done with his presentation. to
Okay.
make my
Okay, so
comment.
I guess, all right, so, I think I'll still talk on this one here, to go through the.
I can just hold it up.
All right, so parking is one of the items we're going for a variance tonight. One also was the front setback that we discussed on Mark Road. The other one is building coverage. Your zoning requires up to 50% of building coverage. What was out there previously was about 67%, so larger building. We're down to 57% building coverage. So we're actually exceeding what you allow from a building coverage standpoint, but we're much less than before. And I think most importantly is, you also have a second coverage requirement, which is 80% maximum impervious coverage. So you take the pavement and the sidewalks and add it to the building, you can go up to 80. We comply with that. So even though we have a slightly bigger building than what was anticipated in the zoning requirements, more importantly, we meet the overall open space and impervious coverage limitations. So we see that as a benefit actually to have more building than pavement, honestly. So that was one of the ones that we're going for. The other one was, we're a little conservative, was access drive separation. So I think that the intention of that, if you had one driveway entrance here and one driveway entrance here, not to have them closer within 30 feet because you have competing traffic movements. But we want to be conservative, so we've actually asking this waiver to have our loading area to be approximately 27 feet from our parking area. So it's a difference of approximately 3 feet. But we are going to be formally requesting that to make sure it's clear. Now, could we actually accommodate the 30 feet if I took the parking lot that has like a 5-foot buffer from the additional building? If I took our parking lot and moved it towards the other guy's building, I could actually be compliant with that. But we felt it was best to provide a little bit of separation from that adjacent building. We thought it's a better design to do it that way. Existing nonconformity, we have lot depth. The ordinance requires 100 foot of lot depth. We meet it for the entire area except where we have the angle point in Mark Road. So this is an existing hardship based upon the existing property dimensions. And you can look at the size of a small depth decrease compared to the overall property. It really is very de minimis. So one of the things that we wanted to look through, we went through the planner's letter and everything, and one of the things that was talked about is like, how will this new project sort of be in compliance, since we are going through, how will it be sort of compliance within your master plan? And, one of the goals of the master plan is retaining existing commercial establishment by fostering a positive regulatory climate. This is an existing active commercial business within this community. At the same time, they're actually looking to increase that. And as far as the cooperation, I think we've actually accomplished a lot through the DRC meetings. Adding of the bike rack, adding of the picnic tables, talking about being deer-tolerant climate, deer-tolerant species of plants. We felt we really are accomplishing that master plan goal. Strengthen the appearance of commercial districts by adopting landscape design ordinance. So in this situation, we're not adopting any ordinances, but I definitely believe when you drive down through there, this project's going to have more landscaping than what you've seen in the past on Mark Road. So we feel we are raising the bar with landscaping on this project. Encourage the development of the borough's economic base by generating employment growth, increased property values, and improvement of underutilized properties. We took a look at the initial photos of that building. That was very unutilized. This is going to employ almost 20 employees. Right now, with the building down, now it's really a vacant piece of property that really has no real value. So we feel like that we are definitely accomplishing the master plan goals of really coming through with this project. Promote pride and appearance. And again, I think this building with this amount of landscaping is definitely increasing what's the standard within that area. I am a professional engineer, but from a planning perspective, we're definitely promoting adequate light, air, and open space. Literally, I didn't realize that the adjacent building on the western side actually had windows. And the windows were basically 2 feet away from the existing building. So now, when we're pulling this building away, that those windows on that existing building are actually going to have some light associated with them. By us exceeding a lot of the setbacks around the building, it's definitely going to create a much better fit for this project in this area. One of the goals is to promote a desirable visual environment. Again, I could put the old elevation up compared to the new elevations and that. It's quite obvious that this will definitely be an improvement over what we've seen in that area in the past. And then if you look at, are any of these variances sort of going to negatively affect our neighbors? And we don't feel that's the case at all, because when we're doing things like maybe the setbacks decreases, that's really sort of towards the public right-of-way areas. We're not getting closer to our neighbors in any sense. We're really just a little bit closer to that public right-of-way. Building coverage, it's so de minimis. We think we still are really being very respectful of our neighbors by pulling our buildings away from it. So I think we're doing a good job of not impacting them. At the same time, this is the industrial district. That's where this project should go. This project's not meant for the residential communities. So we feel like putting this proper use in this area is overall very beneficial to the community. With that said, we definitely feel that these variances could be granted if you choose to do that without any detriment to the public good or the welfare of the public and Kenilworth itself. Did I miss anything in your letters? I tried to capture within here, but solid waste. So the initial concepts were to actually store the solid waste internally. But it looks like that, speaking with the client in more detail in their operations, we are going to put an outside enclosed solid waste dumpster on this facility. We'll have to do that.
Could you fit it without removing a space, or?
We won't lose any parking, but I do think we'll actually elongate. See, we have some space here with a bump out, and now this space really isn't needed because the drive-through door doesn't need a back out space. And in this space, that's a long area to back out. So I believe we can accommodate it on the property without losing any parking spaces.
Would that be buffered or within an enclosure?
It'd be an enclosure, yeah, it would be an enclosure.
Our original discussion had the garbage inside.
Correct. Talking through the owner, through the detail operations, it needs to be external.
Do you have enough space for an enclosure there?
We have about 5 feet here, and then we probably have another 5 feet here, so that makes about 10 feet for an 8-yard dumpster or so. And then this width is about 24 feet, so you probably could fit about 2 8-yard dumpsters within that area. Also, too, we have a little bit of room here, too, so I still could fit these plantings if I scoot the curb up a couple feet towards Mark Road. So we feel confident we can accommodate it with a screened solution.
How deep would it be?
How deep would it be? I'd say about 10 feet for a couple dumpsters.
And the green there is how much?
That's about 5 feet.
Okay. And the enclosure would then have to meet setbacks.
Does that be within the rear setback?
It's an accessory structure, it's going to have to meet those setbacks.
Well,
You may need a variance for that.
yeah, we'll work out an open non-variant solution then for solid waste.
This is a new aspect, so I'm disappointed that it's not inside than we thought, because this is a different wrinkle on what that parking lot's going to look like.
Why can't it be inside?
We can ask that question of
To the owner?
Mr. Morgan.
Okay.
Mr. Blue, the only other, I think, trouble on engineering, and Mr. Cueto can jump on this if he wants, but the engineering letter brought up the site plan should be revised to identify the proposed curbing to transition back to the trust.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we agree with all the technical, we would agree to comply with all the technical requirements within both lines.
Okay. And then I think explain the sewer flow, the existing versus the proposed.
Yes, it will be more, since the facility hasn't been in operation for so long, there definitely will be an increase of sewer flows, but based upon, there's really no activities really that generate sewer flows in here except the employees themselves. So the sewer and water demand for potable water for drinking will be minimal sewer and water demand. Fire suppression system will be a different nature, it'll be probably a sizable service for fire service.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, any of the board members wish to speak now, or would you like to hear from the property owner, or? Go ahead, Mr. David.
Yeah, so I believe you said that the proposed maximum building coverage is going to be 56.9%,
Yes.
and it requires 50. So my question is, did you consider reducing the building footprint by 6.9% so that you would comply with that, which in addition would lower your parking requirements, possibly bringing you into compliance with that? And if you did consider it, why did you reject it?
So that's more of a, I guess, an owner question, but my understanding is basically we really needed this space to really fit the operations necessary for really fit the operations in.
I don't have the quick math mind, but if you reduced it by 6.9%, how much square footage would you reduce the building by?
1060.
1,060
So
square feet?
So 15,000 square feet, so 10% is 1,500 square
6
feet.
by 180.
Okay. So roughly 1,000 square feet. That's it.
Right now, the depth of that is 90, sorry,
I believe it's 90.
70 feet to the back of the loading dock, correct?
Yeah, the one that's approximately 70 feet of distance.
And that, the 67, the largest tractor trailer, will still edge out.
It will be out of the building, correct. It'll be over the property line, but within the curb line.
Okay.
Yes, the big one will.
Is it you, or is the owner, you said it's going to be a varied number of trucks delivered during the day. Do we have an idea of how many are going to be?
How are you making the bigger truck?
If that was in line with the rest of the building, and then the cab is sitting out, how many of those trucks are we looking at from a potential, so that we don't have this front yard setback? Because I know it's a short distance, there's not much of the road left, but you're still blocking the road with the building. We have a zero clearance position right now. It is a tight road.
Right, that's true. But you're not, at least, I want to be clear, so the truck will still be within the curb line, so it won't be blocking the pavement area, but it'll just be actually across this walkway portion. So at least it won't be blocking traffic in and out, it'll just really just be encroaching into that sidewalk area that we got. So at least it won't be affecting the vehicle.
Understood, but it still presents a wall that's closer to, again, you've gone down that road. The road's tight confines as it is. Obviously now it looks a lot more open because the building's not there. It's perception, it's reading the street. This is a new building, we're getting new development, that's great. But if we leave this one aspect of it, then somebody else is looking at something else and saying, well, we did this. But if it's, you're gonna have a truck sitting out there maybe twice a week.
I'm gonna let the owner, because
Yeah.
he knows because that's getting into a technical operation, I'm gonna let the owner properly address that.
I think I'd like to address that as well, but I'd like to hear from the owner first, and then we could elaborate a little bit more on that. Because I'd like to know how many trucks are coming in, how long does it take to offload? If they offload in an hour, is it really impacting, is it not impacting? It is a tight road, but it's not a main thoroughfare, all of those things come into play. Would I like to see it just butt right off? Probably, but I think we need to get some more testimony before we could.
One other question, you mentioned maximum 20 people. for the facility?
Yeah, anticipate 20 employees.
Okay. And that's in the day one configuration of really no office?
I think we should bring up the owner, because there's a lot of questions coming up, and I don't want to keep putting
That's
off.
fine, yeah.
and give
Can we just hold off 1 second? I
incorrect
think we may have another question from a board member. Is that correct, Mr. Pantini?
Yeah, can I just ask a couple questions?
Sure,
below?
sure.
So, and I'm sure I'll have questions for the owner as well.
Okay.
Okay. I like the questions so far from the board. I think they're very adequate and very to the point, and I share both of them, Mr. David and Mr. Grimaldi. So from A5 and A6, and you don't have to go back to them, I'm just asking, from A5 and A6, when you talk about the turning movements for the 33 and the 67, and you're gonna get into how many chucks and this and that, and you said it works for the site, fine, granted, but how does it work for Mark Road and Sydney Road, for making those movements? When the 67, it looked like the turning movement went up the entire length of Sydney Road in order to do it. So that's,
And some of those movements are a little conservative through the program.
just wonder, like, you know, how it affects, it's great that it works for you, but it really doesn't work for you, because you're still sticking out a little bit. So that's one question. The other one is also with the building coverage, and I'm sure that goes back to the owner, granted, but like the board is concerned with, is we have these ordinances in place for consistency, and you're proposing a brand-new building from nothing, from the Mom site, and you're making all these betterments, that's a good word, improvements, to the standards from what you have, and like you were saying, like, you know, you could get the separation distance on the driveway if you move it over, but this actually looks a little bit better, maybe, you know, if it works out. With the 5 feet sticking out, might go to you, I'm just saying, but would you possibly increase the loading up? I guess that affects the rest of your functions, like with that forklift.
Actually, so right, moving the actual dot limit line towards the right.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps anything. I mean, my main concerns are your 4 variances. So a lot that you can't really do anything about it. The front yard setback, you kind of like, in my opinion, the front yard setback, I'm not talking about the 4.5 feet over a corner. You're providing testimony that it works, has issues, but it could work to have that, what'd you call that, a bump out or an outcrop? Right. The building coverage, I want to hear more testimony from your applicant. The parking, that's got issues too, if you go with the alternate, because as Mr. David would say, it's in the right of way, and therefore it's not private anymore, it's kind of public, so can you really use that? You know, my concerns were the turning movements for the rest of the site, for the rest of the area. How does your big trucks and quantity of them, how's that going to affect the rest of that area down there, being that it's constrained, being that you have other facilities down there, and they have parking too, and they're entitled to it, and then you're going to come along and put these big trucks in there. I guess the only other question I have is that when you introduced A4, is a forklift the only vehicle that's going to be used in that entrance on the side there?
Let the applicant address that.
And if so, do we have turning movements in and out of that? And are you going to have turning movements for that waste vehicle, or is that going to be done off hours to get that trash receptacles out?
Yeah, I let the applicant talk about if that's going to be used for possibly a small box truck or a van truck would possibly go in there.
How's that going to affect your parking?
I think there's plenty of movements for like the smaller vehicles to do that, so I'm not so concerned about the movements. But the frequency of that door being used, I think the applicant is in the best position to answer those operational questions.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, maybe we could move forward to the owner.
Yes. I would suggest that, and then it's up to you, but we can bring back.
Yes, yeah, well, there's going to be, I know there's going to be a lot of questions. That's why I'm hoping if we could move along a little bit and try to get the testimony, write down our questions. It seems like some are answered in the next testimony and so on and so forth, but they're all good and they're all valid, so it's time. With the show.
Okay.
Could you raise your right hand, please?
Okay.
With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
State your name, spell your last name, please.
Greg Maroukian, Maroukian.
Okay.
Okay, Greg, can you state your position, precision, and your role?
I'm president and I'm the owner of the company.
Okay. And how long has the company been in existence?
32 years.
And at what, is that your main facility?
That's my name.
At
147.
147 North Michigan Avenue. And what does your company do?
We make all the spare parts, replacement parts for all the escalators. So that's really our specialty, and that's what we're known for. We ship all over the country, to Canada, Mexico, South America, Australia, Europe.
Okay, and how many employees do you have total in the company?
We have close to about 100 employees.
And right now, all of those employees sit at 147 North Michigan, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so what operations are you going to have proposing at this facility on Mark Road?
We're going to probably put the step operation over here.
And could you explain?
We refurbish steps, escalator steps for Washington Metro, for Bay Area Rapid Transit, for LA, all over the country. We do that.
So currently, that's an operation that's going on at 147?
Yes.
That you would bring that whole operation over to Mark Road?
That would be the worst. I mean, that would be that's the most intense. I'm not sure we're going to do that, but we're talking about that now. You know, we're trying to keep all the employees in one place if we can. There's a chance we could use this mostly for inventory too. Things change, you know. I put a contract on this almost 3 years ago. So, and then 515 came up, and we bought 515. So we're in the process of buying.
515,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
You'll see that in a couple of months too.
I think we actually went through everything.
Yeah, I think that you're okay on that one, right?
So-
So how many employees do you anticipate being at this site?
20.
At one time,
That would be the most.
would be the most?
At the max, he will have 20 people in this new unit
That's correct.
At one time.
at one time.
Right.
Not necessarily office, just
It would not be office.
operations.
We don't intend to put an office there.
No, I'm just asking you,
Yeah.
20 people would be operations for the most part.
Oh, you do not intend to utilize that space as an office?
Well, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
Yeah, well,
That was the play on words that I asked before. Is it proposed or it's going to be a thought process?
You know, maybe we'll put some, you know, we're not sure.
yes. So if I could explain, and then Mr. Burkhan can agree with me, because my understanding is, the office was put in as the most intensive use for the parking. We wanted the option to put in an office instead of just a light manufacturing building. So the proposed office, but right now, office is not going to be built into it immediately, as of if it were to be built today. But by the time this is built, it might change. So that was what the idea.
But you are asking the board, if we approve this application, it's with the intent that an office may be in that space.
Absolutely.
So we would have to take that into consideration for parking and so on.
Yes, that's correct.
And Mr. O'Brien, with worst-case scenario, with office being used, how much is the required parking versus No office.
I think 23.
The 23
23 with the office.
23 with the
The
office.
office, so that's 2,000 feet of
They're
office.
providing
So
15.
they only need, they could eliminate 8 parking spaces right now.
Okay.
Right, so that was why we did it
Right.
that way, so that it was the most intensive use.
Okay.
So that we wouldn't have to come back and say we need more parking.
I get it. I get it.
Okay. And the hours of operation and days of operation, if you could just confirm or correct that.
Probably like 7 in the morning to 5. Usually our guys leave around 4:30, but once in a while we work late. Usually work on Saturday from 7 to 12 or 7 to 1, it depends.
Okay.
But that's generally the time period.
And now, given, we'll go into the building coverage, and I know there's been a lot of discussion before we even came to the DRC about the size of the building and whether you needed this much space. So do you want to expand or comment on that?
Yes, we definitely need as much space as we can get. And we need space just to maintain the workflow. Everything we do is bulky, and we definitely need space. I don't know, everyone needs space, but we definitely, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, do we have it? Whatever we have here, we're gonna need more, so.
And what was the thought process of putting a loading dock inside?
Well, that was to facilitate everything for the town, really, because the only really way to get trucks in here is to go up
Sydney Road.
Sydney Road and back. Otherwise, you'd just be blocking the whole street. So I thought it was the best option. Really, almost the only option, unless someone has a better idea.
So you put the internal loading dock
Yeah.
in and you placed it where you did so that the truck wouldn't block the entire road on
Yes.
Sydney? Okay. And then the trucks per day. So there's a lot of questions about the size of the trucks and how many you would get per day. Can
Wow.
you estimate that? Well, let's ask this. How many do you get at 147?
Well, we get, several at 147. We'll have a couple trucks here a day. I don't know if we're gonna have 54-footers. You don't know what FedEx comes in sometimes. Sometimes they come in straight jobs, sometimes they come in a 54-footer. It depends on what's coming, what's being shipped.
But on average, 2 a day.
I would say 2, maybe 3 a day. Not big trucks, but maybe 154-footer a day.
So wait, can I interject?
Yeah.
I just want to help you, not help you along, I just want to,
It's okay.
okay, I want to get to a point. So you're going to have a 54-foot truck that comes into this loading dock, which is going to be sticking out and that bump out a small piece. How long does it take you, on an average, to offload that truck? Now, your biggest truck, 54-foot truck, you've got the big boxes, the escalators in there. Does it take you an hour or two?
It could take an hour. Yeah.
Okay, it could take an hour.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Off the record?
No, it's on the
Without anyone shooting me. Without anyone shooting me.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
If we could move this back 5 feet and we get rid of this part in the front, I think it would make everything a lot easier.
If you move the loading dock,
The whole
perimeter,
building
not
back.
the building.
The whole building back.
So if you move the building back, then you're gonna, don't you violate the rear?
Yeah, then we've got another variance.
Yeah,
I know,
you're
we're
right.
just talking.
It's just nothing.
Yeah, it changes the variance.
Of course,
a better vendor.
Yes.
we need to create a little order because we're all talking at the same time. First of all, I hear what you're saying, and Mr. David is right. It might be a better variance, but I think I see Kevin, you were just about to say something there when he said that.
With your permission, Chairman?
Yeah, surely.
I wonder if at the end of this conversation with the board and Mr. Marukian, that we all might be better served if Mr. Marukian and his team went back and presented another plan to us, which would reflect what you really want, rather than us guessing as to might be here, might be there. At the end of this conversation, so we can all get a feel for how the board looks upon this.
Are you saying that you want him to go back and do another plan and come before us again?
It's looking like that might be best for the board's perspective, to see what it is that they're
Already got seven exhibits.
And-
See.
Just so I can comment, and I don't disagree with, I mean, I haven't clearly with Greg, but I don't disagree with it because we did throw a lot of new things at you, and we are kind of talking about different things, and it's hard to visualize, so if it makes it easier for the board to see it and say, okay, if we move the building, we really wanted to get your input before we just, drew up all these plans that...
I think we like what we're hearing at this point. I'm not speaking for everyone because that wouldn't be right, but I'm liking what I'm hearing.
Okay.
I see the alternate site layout. I see that this gentleman is going above and beyond to try to meet almost every requirement there is, putting that truck inside and doing everything with the buffer zone. And I see that our review process is working, and you're putting your best foot forward. You've been here a long time, and we see that you're going to invest and continue to invest in Kenilworth. And I think, with that being said, a little latitude here to take another look at another plan with all our suggestions that you heard here tonight might be in the best interest for your application.
Well, I'm certainly.
And nobody shot at that.
Nobody
No
shot.
shot, I know it's the last minute, but
Just another comment too, the loading dock, and Mr. Collins can speak better than I can, but I believe without the internal loading dock, then we meet the building coverage.
Exactly. So,
What, if you take the cut off?
No, I was gonna say, because you have an opportunity of just taking off that whole section of the building,
Right.
and then it's just the dock and the doors at the back. It's better to do it this way.
so if the board agrees, I think I, for one, would like to hear the rest of the testimony. I would like to hear what our planner and our engineer has to say. I would like to really get a full scope of what's happening, so when you come back, some of those things, or most of those things will be done. Now we're looking at the real deal. Does the board agree with that? Okay, so why don't we just continue and let's see where we're going.
Can I ask one
You
question?
may.
Trucks, overnight parking? Is there any overnight parking at trucks?
no.
No? The delivery trucks come and they
That
come.
very seldom happens. It's happened a couple times over the years, but that happened at 147.
Okay. So what-
But very, very seldom does that happen.
And is there any overnight parking in the parking lot of employees' vehicles, or they leave and they're gone, and there's no overnight shifts or anything like
Believe me,
that?
they take everything.
Very good, thank you.
And we could certainly have a condition that there's no truck parking, which is...
Mr. David?
Yeah, Mr. Schilke just made me think of something. Is there ever a situation where tractors are stacked, meaning, one's now sitting in this case, one's going to be sitting in Mark while the other one's already in the dock, and, like no one's moving on Mark Road.
I guess it could happen, you can't really arrange when the FedEx comes or UPS comes or the truckers come, but I don't really foresee that happening.
I think Mr. David is
Certainly-
referencing the larger trucks. Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, at 147, do you have situations where there's two long tractors waiting, to unload or pick up?
Well, I have several loading docks, so they can park inside.
Oh, I see.
There's like 6 space.
I can speak to that.
I mean, I don't think we've ever had 2 or 3,
Okay, at the same time.
I actually drove through that lot today also. It's very clean, very well maintained.
I worked at 147 for 11 years. I know that building inside out.
So even to Mr. Davis' point, which is a fantastic one, right? We have a narrow block, and you have that tandem of trucks that are there that you can't control. Can you provide that truck to hit 147 as the holding pen before it comes over, so we're not congesting the street?
Yeah.
Oh, that's another route.
Yeah, did a good one.
Yes, sir.
Do any of your employees carpool? The employees that would use this facility?
A little bit, some do.
Okay, so worst case, there's 20 employees. On average, how many cars would there be? 10, 15?
There'd be
On average?
18.
Yeah, so we actually, that was one of my other questions. We actually went through this and calculated it, and I heard him when he was on the phone with someone at 147. They said, okay, out of 100 employees, how many cars are in the parking lot?
Okay.
So, and how many carpool and how many of this. So we did the calculations, and it came out to about almost 30-40% that either carpool or public transportation. Right?
And my other question is, other than the workers, does anyone come here in terms of executives from other companies to check on the status of the manufacturing, or purchasers, or?
It comes once in a while, not too often.
Say, I mean, like visitors, customers?
It does, not too often.
All right, so,
Would they come to
I have someone
this?
coming from Scotland tomorrow, that's about it.
But would they come to
For this month.
not to this building, you know.
this?
No, they might come to this, I might take them to this building, but they wouldn't go on their own.
I'm just trying to get a worst-case scenario for this building. Parking wise.
The only other question that I had that was questions from the board was the trash, and why
It's good.
why it needs to be outside and why it can't be inside.
Well, part of the reason is, it might smell up the place, but Dave had a good suggestion, is you put a dumpster in here and any of the other garbage, maybe you get a trash can or something, put outside,
Like a regular,
Yeah.
like, not
Or something,
residential.
So your cardboards and things related to your business would go in there, and
Well,
then
you're
the
gonna have
food trash would
cardboards
be...
inside, yeah, you're gonna have a tray.
So, yeah.
So you have a small dumpster outside. for-
Yeah, it's not going to impact the facility.
Whatever you call it.
Or if you're going to put a garbage can out, you know,
If I may, I'm sorry, you.
I'm finished, thank you, but.
So your 1,000 square feet, Mr. David, if he just had the loading dock at the back and didn't enclose the truck, he gets his 1,000 square feet back to bring the 5,600 down to 50. Most likely, once the math's done. You have a large enough space in there to store your refuse or your cardboard, your material, your manufacturing waste. You just think you could just have a little tote outside.
Yeah.
You don't need a container,
We could do that.
a surround, or anything else in there.
We certainly-
Because again, that's how typically your loading dock ends up getting used, and just wheel it out. But I think going that next step is, I think we should clarify the conditions that we would like to see, so that all of our time is used well to come back with a cleaned up. The architect could address concerns, the engineer and the building could address them, and if we could get them a concise piece. And this, I would say, although we don't like doing it, it's functional, and it ends up working the best for the town, and that's what we're here for. It's functional to go back and forth with it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I guess it's the east portion of the building where it curves off. It is what it is. I mean, you know,
I don't think anybody on this board would concern that.
that was so much better now. You got it. So if those little tweaks in here kind of makes things work a lot better, and it's much more palatable to look at the next go around.
And, you have a presence. Apparently, you're gonna have at least 3 presents here. So we wanna make sure you're happy with the town as much as the town's happy with you.
So if you're kind of wrapped up, I think we need to hear from our professionals at this point. What do you think? Unless our board members have something to say? No. Mr.,
Any questions for the town? I think it's okay.
well, after they go.
Okay.
Where? He'll be biting my ear off, don't worry.
Mr. Chairman, I believe they addressed most of my comments, and they said they were going to agree with anything that was in the letter.
Okay.
The only thing that was left to address was the timing of the proposed lighting.
Yes.
Is it just going to be the same time as the hours of operation? Or is it going to be on timers?
And the door swing?
Maybe your lighting plan can be revised or
Would that be you, Chris? In the door swing?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything else that you needed to address?
There's a couple button-up items in the letter. If they could just address my letter of April 4th.
Well, with the way this is going, with your letter and Mr. O'Brien's recommendations, that letter now should be squelched to almost nothing.
Yes.
Everything should be on the plan for the board to see, and maybe some new items may come up. I don't think you need another review, right? I think we're just going to get this fast-tracked into your office. Mr. O'Brien, do you have something?
A few things, Chairman. The board may want to give some advice on that facade that faces the parking lot. Right now, it's that large blank expanse, so perhaps your comments would be helpful to the applicant. Whether or not you're satisfied with that facade that faces Mark Road, or that's fine. If you'd like to see something else, now's the time to say something. As Mr. Quayle pointed out, the lighting will be revised in their next go-around. Also, we need to give guidance as to the parallel parking on Mark, whether or not that is something you would like to see or not like to see. There are certainly safety advantages to it. However, it is removing a considerable amount of right-of-way access. But that's a balance for policymakers to decide. And also, my question about the pole lights, the 8 pole lights, was never answered, so that should be addressed in your revised lighting plan.
Okay.
Is that it?
So, things for you guys to think of, sir.
I think I had in my notes, the applicant was going to look at adding more roof leaders to try to put more water into the detention basin.
Correct.
I think I had that. And also, is the prospect still in play where the applicant might put the bump out at the rear of the building as opposed to on Mark? That was thrown out as a possibility. I don't know if
I think it's like the whole...
No, I think what he meant is instead of having a bump out, take the bump out and pull the whole building back.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pull the whole building back 5 feet, so now instead of having a 10-foot setback, in the
Okay.
back, you'll have a 5, well, it'd be fine.
It'd be
Just
nothing.
pull the whole thing back, and then you won't have trucks
That might help
sticking
with
out
the
5
parking in
feet
the
on the
front. Yeah,
sidewalk.
no, I understand. I didn't know whether the whole building was going to go back or whether
Well, that's
bump
what-
out was going to be...
That was the applicant.
That's what the applicant said, right?
that
Bring the whole building back, and then you won't have to bump out.
Take the rear yard setback from 10 to 5 and lose the appendage in the front.
And then you have presumably more parking on, more room for parking on Mark.
Yeah,
You could bump it out even more, so you're not in the right of way, maybe.
and then you won't have to worry about it being public or private.
Yeah.
And the applicant may want to consider if that bump out is going to be changed, elongating that internal dock towards the rear
Yeah.
overhead door to eliminate that couple of feet of trucks sticking out on the
Right.
street.
If the building's back.
The building covered back, so we won't have that issue.
The comment was that if the dock were pushed back a little bit, not to get in the way of that rear overhead door, but to get up towards it closer, that might give you a few more feet.
What else you got, Mr. O'Brien?
Okay,
Thank you, Sharon.
as far as I'm concerned, with the facade of the building, with the facade of the building, you make a good point that it is like a big blank wall. I don't know if the board wants to put much input, and we could certainly poll and ask on a design, a look, or something like that. I think that's something that maybe the architect needs to present and tell us what their thought process is. I think they got a lot of good suggestions and comments from the board tonight. I don't know if we're in the business of rebuilding or building. We made our comments, we made our suggestions. I think we need to see what they come back and draw up, and it's going to be exciting. But that was just my opinion on that one. Does the board has anything to say to that?
I mean, for me, you know, I like the concept of pushing the building back as opposed to having that bump out in the front, so that's a step in the right direction. And then, again, from an aesthetics position, as the chair just said, you know, if I see it, I can tell you if I like it, you know. I don't, you know, I'm not crazy about what's currently presented. We had, you know, not that you should suffer for that, but we had a building of similar nature that is brand new being built on Borough. You can go down and look at it. When it was presented in front of us, actually, the renderings looked quite nice. But now seeing it built, it's so much worse.
I've had so many of those.
Right, it's so much, and so if I feel like we liked that when we saw it on drawings, and when we saw it in reality, not so much. I'm not crazy about what I'm seeing on drawings. God only knows what it might look like in reality.
So you're creative.
Again, aesthetically, anything that can be done to try and improve that, that's, you know, your architect's expertise, not mine, but that's what I would like to see personally.
And we can look at bringing a color rendering or something a little bit more detailed so you can actually see.
That would be a big help. And, you know, with these prefab structures, there's a lot you could do with a frieze board, something that wraps the building that doesn't lend itself to be so stark as, well, I'm in an industrial zone, so I'm going to be, you know.
Right.
We got to just give it a little kick.
I would just ask, you brought up the side that's blank to the parking lot. Maybe a light, an additional window, but it's somewhat protected, you don't see it. So I don't know if I want to add that much lighting, that much access, that breakable access to the building.
When you take a look at the other buildings on Mark, the newer ones have done more in the way of treatment. I think this side is going to be somewhat visible because of the width of the parking lot.
So you can see it coming back towards you.
Yeah, so maybe an improvement perhaps, not full scale.
The only other thing, if the building does move back 5 feet, maybe the man doors could swing around the side and leave that face blank, because then you have very little to get in and out of the man doors.
Yeah.
Right now you have 10 feet. If we move it back 5 feet, you have the door and the property line. So
Patio on the property, yeah.
yeah, so then maybe the doors swing around to get them away from that. And yes, again, keeping with your economics, with the building, you know, keep it a straight tube and all, but embellish the facade, at least at the entrance. The doors with the ramp, maybe the doors even get recessed, and they still could swing out. You're providing protection for the door, and it's at least a break in the building, and something can happen with it. You're an elevator company, things go up and down.
Escalate.
Escalator. So, movement company.
Again, this board is just making some suggestions, but it's your job to do what you have to do. And this board is also going to recommend that it's your responsibility is to find out whether there is parking on Mark Road or not, and, that's not the legwork of the board or our professionals, so when you present, you should have that information already in order. At this point, I would like to know if the board members would like to talk or speak to the engineer, the architect, the attorney, and/or the owner, or did we get this pretty much exhausted? Is this exhausted at this point? Seeing none. Okay. Is there anything that anybody else would like to say before I open this meeting to the public?
We're going to have to consider timing, Chairman, whether we make the next meeting or not, and the submission of new plans.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is let's open the meeting to the public, and then we can go ahead and then get that, okay? Can we have a...
Yeah, I'll make a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Second. I don't know who seconded, about 7 of us, but it was made by Mr. David and seconded by everybody else.
Mr. Ladati.
Mr. Ladati?
I heard her first.
Okay.
No offense to Mr. Antino.
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone from the public? Can you please step up to the mic, state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Frank Savino. I'm the president of United Fire Protection Corp. at 1 Mark Road. I reside at 207 Cranford Avenue in Cranford. I've bought the building that I'm in right now about 12 years ago, approximately. And the building was in really bad shape, and I rehabilitated it. It's a very beautiful building. One of the most beautiful buildings in Kenilworth right now, I would say. What I wanted to say is that, there seems to be a lot of requests for variances from the zoning ordinance. We've got the front yard setback goes from 10 feet to 0 feet. The coverage goes from the minimum 50 to 57%. The parking, which the minimum required goes from 23 to, it's a little bit ambiguous because the application for the variance states 17. I got a certified letter that says 16, and then I think one of the people that testified earlier said 15. So that's a little bit ambiguous, but obviously we're short on the necessary parking. And it was noted that the calculation was kind of done conservatively in terms of, there's offices that were figured in, but there probably won't be offices to start. But when you look at the percent of offices that was figured in, it's only 13% of the total amount of the building. So the overall parking calculation is really not very conservative. It's based on like a warehouse kind of an occupancy, which is not very, very stringent. So the parking count of 23, it really should be, in my opinion, much higher. Now, if you look at the 15 spots which was testified, you subtract out 2 for handicap parking, that only leaves 13 parking spots for that building, right? They already acknowledged there's going to be 20 people there. And from my own experience, not that many people carpool, okay? Most people drive to work. In fact, I've got employees, I don't think anybody carpools. So I think if you've got 20 people now, and then probably office coming down the road, and you've got if you don't have any handicapped people and you've got 13 spots, you've got a big parking problem. You're not even in ballpark as far as the parking requirement. Now, a lot was talked about the old building, it was covering the entire area, and it's going to be a big improvement. But I should say, first of all, we're talking about the present and the future, we're not talking about the past. And the old building actually had parking across the entire front of that building, and there were about 30 spots. So as you drive right up and park right up in front of the building, perpendicular to the street. So there was a lot of parking with the old building that you're not going to have now. We've got an empty lot right now. There's no reason why we can't conform to the standards. It seems like somebody wants to cover the whole surface area of that lot with a building when we really don't have to. We can comply with the law. In fact, I considered buying that building, and I did make an offer on the building. And when I made the offer, I looked at the existing building that was there, that was a wreck, and I was thinking about, well, maybe we could rehabilitate the building, and then I just thought it was too far gone. But then in my considerations, I said, hey, we've got setbacks, we've got parking, I could put whatever, an 8,000 square foot building there. and comply with all of the requirements. Now we're going into whatever, a 15,000 square foot building. Why? We've got ordinances that we should be abiding by. The candidate is saying that they've got a business and they want to grow that business. It's a growing business. So we got 20 people, we have more office people coming, then they want to grow. Where are all these people going to park? 13 spots, if you subtract out the handicap. So hopefully you've got handicapped employees that can use those 2 spots. The building is going to be there. Right now, everybody's talking about like what the business operation is right now, okay? What do you do right now? But the building's going to be there for 75 or 100 years. The planning board really has to plan, in my opinion, there's going to be changes. There's going to be other occupants of that building. They're going to be using it in different ways. And there's going to be some times where 13 parking spots is just not going to be enough. And you're going to have a big overflow problem with regard to the parking. The alternate plan of using the public roadway, in my opinion, is improper because we're using public property for private use. That would be, I think, not even should be considered. So, percentage-wise, if you've got 15 parking spaces and 23 are required, even if you count the whole 15, which really maybe you shouldn't because you've got the handicap, even if you count that, you've only got 65% of the minimum required. And again, that's based on a very, on most of it being not very restrictive. In other words, it's mostly like a warehouse. 90% or 87% is considered warehouse, which is only 400 square feet versus 200 for office. So in conclusion, I think right now you have a clean slate, you have an empty lot. I think we should build a building that complies. If people need a little bit of slack, they need, hey, you know what, I'm off by 3%, 4%, fine. We help people. You're off by a third, okay? That's now you're out of bounds. You're out of the ballpark. There's no reason why a compliant building cannot be built there. And really, it's going to make a bad situation worse, because what I didn't mention is the parking situation there has become very, very bad. When I moved in, half the buildings there were vacant, okay? Now all the buildings are full. The economy is going very, very well. So there's not enough parking as it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a bad situation much, much worse. I just hope that we don't have a situation where 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, when there's cars all over the place, double parked, creating a hazard, people don't say, like, what were they thinking when they allowed this building to completely cover all of that land? What were they thinking? So, in conclusion, please follow the ordinances. There are no reason why we should not be following the ordinances that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Savino.
May I ask Mr. Savino a question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Savino, you mentioned that there's not enough parking now. Are people parking on the street now?
Yes.
On Mark.
No, on Mark Road? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. There's on the south side of Mark Road. So as you come down off of Michigan Ave, there's that very large building beyond your left, okay? There are some people that, in fact, I took pictures, I brought them if you'd like to see it. There's really there's no street parking anymore. There's no parking on land, okay? Like, my building is fully occupied, I've got employees on the street, and it's getting where there's like, I'm kind of worried, like, where are we gonna go, okay? I can't hire any more people, okay?
What did you say your business address was?
1 Mark Road.
1 Mark?
Yeah, and I would suggest that people on the board just take a ride down there, one morning or afternoon, and just kind of see what the situation is. It's really not a good situation. And the other thing is sometimes you've got tractor trailers that are backed up into some of the properties there, and it's creating a safety hazard where I'm trying to get to work, and there's a truck, trying to unload, so I have to wait a couple minutes while I offload. But if there's an emergency vehicle that has to get through at that time, it could be a problem.
You are basically diagonal?
Yeah, I'm right across the street. Yeah. So I'm on Mark Road and Sydney, I guess, that little side street. That's my building there.
I know where you are now.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
I don't think so. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, motion to close?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. David, second by Mr. Rui. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, all right. Right now, we are moving into, I don't know if this would be an extension of this application, or how does this work at this point? I need a little guidance, Mr. Rigo.
I'm sorry,
That's okay, I saw you cheating. What I'm asking is, right now, I think the applicant wants to move to extend this application until the next hearing. Is that enough time?
Well, we need to determine, ultimately, I'll do it in reverse order, we'll have to give you a specific hearing date, so you don't have to renotice. Are we okay on time, Kathy? We don't have to make a decision. They're okay within 120 days?
Can we get an extension on the record?
We'll get an extension automatically, and it depends on how much time you're going to need, so we can back up to a hearing date. If you say you can have everything to our consultants in 2 weeks, and to the board, then maybe May is doable. If it's going to take you a month, then May not be doable.
I'm told by our professionals that they can have it done so that the professionals, you want it to you 10 days before or 2 weeks?
Everything goes to us 2 weeks, to everybody, the board and professionals.
You want
2 weeks
that,
out.
we'll.
So you have
So yes, we have plenty of time.
2 weeks to get everything to everyone.
Yeah.
So that would be the 26th of April, that the revised plans would be due to everybody. And the hearing date would be the 10th of May.
Does that work?
I don't know.
Are you busy on the 10th?
Oh, no.
They're just not paying attention to the hearing.
No.
The applicant can have what they need to Harbor and to Kevin within 2 weeks.
Right.
And then if that's the case, then we can carry it, if the board so chooses, to May 10. Here, 7:30, no further notice required. And you'll extend time, I don't think we need it, but just in case, maybe to
Yes, we
I have
can
to-
send to 120 days.
June 30th, or just for, okay.
Excellent, yes.
But I also have to ask, does the board feel they have enough of time to take a look at the new plan and have time to do what we normally do?
If we got them 2 weeks in advance, sure.
Okay. So we are pretty stringent on that as well. The board wants them 2 weeks in advance so we can do our job. So as long as you can meet that criteria, we don't have a problem. Is that clear?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. So you have a date to get your materials in, and May 10th.
I'm not going to. Okay.
We don't need to clean our criteria first. The
You
conditions they've heard enough.
have enough of the thoughts of the board?
Yes,
You've
we
heard-
do. I think
okay.
all three of us have taken notes, so between the three of us, and I have all of your numbers and your...
Okay.
So,
So I think what we need to do at this point is that we'd like to have a motion to extend this to the next meeting, and if they are not on the
May 10th?
May 10th, and if they're not prepared, we're going to go to the June 14th meeting, is it?
We can announce it at the May 10th meeting. But you're comfortable with the timelines?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're extending time to make a decision, right now to June 30th, which we may not need. No, the extended time that we need to act to June 30, but they're coming in on May 10th.
I'll make the motions.
Motion made by Mr. Grimaldi.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Shelby. Roll call, please.
Mr. Shelby?
Yes.
Mr. Sarno?
Oh, well, if Mr. David's saying this, we can do all in favor.
Yeah, let's do a voice.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So move here. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and all your suggestions and your patience.
Thank you for putting on a traffic block too.
What's the rules with the exhibits? They stay here?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to exhibits.
You need them to redo?
We have PDF documents.
Okay, let's try to move this last three things. Any comments for the good of the board?
Okay? Okay. I have one, I just wanted to tell everybody. I really want to congratulate Harbor and Shamrock, because I noticed tonight that there's been a great change in the way the presentations are being made with respect to the review. It made it a little bit easier, we didn't have to go through, are you going to put more plantings, are you going to do this? So they addressed the trees, the species of trees, what is going to happen if, so I think our process is working. So I want to thank you guys and the board for sticking together and saying that this is going to go further, and that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you for your guidance on that, Chairman. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well done.
I will make a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. David, second by Mr. Shelkey. All in favor? Aye. Anyone from the public? Seeing none? I was getting as fast as you.
That's right. I make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Opened by Mr. David, seconded by Mr. Shelkey. All in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. David, seconded by Mr. Shelkey. Okay, good night, everyone.